and welcome in to the RotoWire Esports Show. My name is Andrew Laird, joined, it's going to be, as always, but this is our first show, by Ethan Sexton. Now that the LPL is back, League of Legends is going to be back in full force on DraftKings, DraftKings and FanDuel, so we're here to talk about those. Ethan, everything's back. How do you feel?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm excited for the new season as a guy who obviously likes to watch professional League of Legends scene. It's a little different this time, doing this stuff. Sure, the pandemic's still going on, almost a year since we did our first podcast together, but at least, a lot of the traditional sports are going. So esports isn't the only game in town this time, but it seems to have carved out a nice little niche on DraftKings and FanDuel, so that was kind of cool to see. And the contests have filled up pretty quick here for Saturday, for tomorrow, and so it's going to be interesting. I'm glad it's still around and people are still, at least enjoying playing it to some extent.
Yeah, I'll say I actually listened back to our How to Play DFS League of Legends podcast, and thankfully I know more now than I did then. You were obviously very much the expert then. You still are for this podcast at least, but it was funny. I had recognized that I believe it was an LCS slate was the one that day, and it was a $300,000 prize pool.
Yeah.
And LPL's back Saturdays tomorrow. And the prize pool is $40,000, which is bigger than we've actually seen for the latest Premier League slates on Saturdays. We do have some NFL on Saturday, so I think that pushes it down a little bit. But NFL is going to be ending soon. Obviously, NBA is back up. NHL should be starting up next week, but I agree. There's definitely I think the niche of League of Legends on DraftKings is bigger than it was pre-pandemic. And personally, I am not very good at daily fantasy League of Legends, which sucks because I like it more than any other sport. Like the lineup building process, I think for League of Legends is so much better.
Yep.
Feels much more like a puzzle than every other sport, and that's even on a 2-game slate that we're going to get for Saturday. We've got LCK coming back. I think it's the middle of next week or end of next week where we'll get some bigger slates. But
yep.
But yeah, it's fun to dive back into all the stuff I was doing back in to positively look back on something from 2020. Daily fantasy League of Legends is definitely there.
Yep. No. I'm with you, man. And we'll see what they do with the prize pools. I mean, all that stuff is out of our control,
Sure.
So who knows? But the good sign is the contests they fill up pretty fast. I mean, I wasn't able to get into the contest for Saturday's slate right away when the prices first came out, and I ended up getting into some of the backup contests because a lot of the main ones already had filled. So that was my fault, but what can you do? But that's a good sign. At least people are playing like we're saying, and maybe the prize pools will be at least decent, But like I said, that's out of our control.
Right. Yeah. It does seem like the non-main tournaments, like the main one is a $15 entry, 10K to first, and it seemed like earlier in the year the lower dollar ones were a little bigger. Some of them are pretty small this for Saturday's slate at least, but the only reason that's kind of a bummer is with the 2-game slate we just have so much duplication.
Yeah.
I think that's basically the common theme in League of Legends, particularly on these small slates, that you almost need to consider uniqueness in terms of lineup build more than what you think is going to happen, because at least on this Saturday slate, we have 2 big favorites, so we all kind of know what will happen. It's just a matter of how the pieces fit, and
right.
Then how do you differentiate? I've had twice I finished with the second highest score in the main GPP, and I think I made $35 in one and $60 in the other, and it's just so disheartening when there are 85 people ahead of you.
Yeah, it's really tough when on slates like this with only 4 teams. It's really tough when you're like, oh, I'm in second place, and then you look and, like you said, you're not winning that much because you're splitting it with 900 million other people.
Right.
It is frustrating, and I get that, and it's tough, honestly, on these small slates, and especially like you said for tomorrow, where we've got two just really big favorites. You're going to see tons of duplicate lineups, pretty much no matter. I mean, the common theme surely for tomorrow's lineup build is going to be, try to jam in as much EDG and as much top esports as you can. And you can do it, and you can do it a variety of different ways. But I think no matter how you do it, who you put at captain, who you have here, who you have there, I think you're going to probably end up being duplicated with at least a few other people. Just that's going to be the nature of the contest tomorrow, unfortunately, which doesn't make it as fun or exciting, but, it kind of is what it is, at least until we get some more games on these slates.
I think the positive, maybe not for this immediate Saturday slate, but I think the positive with League of Legends is we do see upsets that would feel like more regularly than we do. And obviously the best of ones are much more variant in that respect. But even, if we get what we think is an obvious 2-0 and it ends up being 2-1, then maybe that throws things a little bit. But yeah, this slate tomorrow, because we were talking about a little bit before, like, oh, this looks like that's going to be the pretty standard build. And then we were like, oh, wait a minute, you could go this way. So,
right. But like you're saying, I think whatever way you go, you're gonna be, somebody else is gonna have the exact same lineup most likely. So, at least if you're going the EDG and top esports route, going and stacking the two favorites, I think no matter what combination you go with, I think it's gonna end up being duplicated by other people. So,
right, it seems like
what it is.
It seems like at least on this one, the way. The path to a unique lineup is most likely finishing last. Like you're probably not having a winning unique, just because.
Yep. I mean, honestly, in tournaments, you have to basically decide. Do I want to stack the two favorites and potentially tie with 20 other people for first place or third place or whatever it is, and maybe I make my money back, or do I just want to take a shot on some of these underdogs? And, maybe it's not the smartest way to build lineups for tomorrow, but if, you get an upset from one of these teams, that's really going to be the way to have a differentiated lineup. Just because we're saying the two favorites, there's going to be tons of people that stack those two teams. But upsets happen, especially early in the year. I think one game is more likely to potentially have an upset than the other. But teams have new players, there's new rosters. There's completely new teams in some cases, and sometimes we're not going to have continuity for a few weeks, and early in the season is when we could potentially see, some upsets. So that's really what you have to decide if you're playing GPPs. Do I want to just stack the two favorites? Because you can do it, and you can do it a variety of different ways, or do you want to take a shot on some of these one or two of the underdogs, and just say, hey, I might not win a single cent on this slate, but if I get a big upset, I might win first place, and I might have a lineup that nobody else has. And it might be worth it, honestly, just to differentiate your lineup that way.
For sure. I did notice that the as big of favorites as they are, like TES was the top favorite, but they're actually much closer than they were yesterday. And it's not because Top Esports is falling as a favorite, but OMG just is continuing to get pushed down, and it looks like people are expecting them, at least by the way that the lines are moving, expecting them to get smashed. What's the upset that you think is more likely to happen?
If I was going to lean one way or the other, and it sounds kind of stupid, but I think that OMG are the team that could potentially upset EDG. Now, if you held a gun to my head, would I pick OMG to win that series? No, I wouldn't. But do I think they could take a game? I think they could take a game. Now, OMG are probably not going to end up being a very good team this year.
Right.
They have pretty much an entirely new roster. They have a couple guys from last year, Eric, who played a couple games at AD Carry, and Cold, who's been on the team for quite a few years now as their support. And I actually think they're a pretty solid duo. Cold's okay. He's not bad. Eric is an up-and-coming support. But the top trio of their lineup, so the top jungle and mid, is pretty weak. It's not a very good top trio, so that's where they're going to struggle. But the reason I think they could take a game is EDG, as good as they are, this should be a team that gets into the playoffs and competes for the LPL title this split, I would think. But they've got a few new pieces coming in as well this year. So tomorrow they're starting. They're going to start Viper over Hope at AD Carry. both Viper and Hope are both very good AD carries. One thing to think about with Viper, though, as he starts tomorrow, so Viper comes over from Korea, and traditionally Korea has played a much slower style than China in the LPL, so it could take him a little bit to adjust, but he is a very good player, so it might not. And, they have a couple other new pieces, so Flandre comes over. Flandre is a very good top laner, but with new pieces, it could take a little bit for them to mesh together and work together. I do think that the weak spot for EDG is in their jungler, in the jungle, excuse me. So GG gets the start tomorrow, but they have Clearlove, who actually was EDG's coach last year. Clearlove is he was historically one of the best junglers in the world. He's taken an entire year off, but he's back on the active roster. We'll see how that shakes out. But GG starting, GG's, he's okay. But he's nothing special. So OMG could sneak a game tomorrow. And I think to your point about how the odds reflect that they're just going to get smashed, they could be the lowest owned team on the slate. So if you're building a GPP lineup, they honestly, they probably get 2-0'd. But could they sneak a game and, you have 2 or 3 pieces that score high enough to differentiate and push your lineup up? Maybe. It's just something you got to think about when you're building a lineup, trying to get that leverage, even if it's not, the smartest play overall to do. It's basically what it comes down to.
Given the depth that EDG has at jungler and ADC, do you think that there's any sub-risk?
Yep, there definitely is. I don't think if they win the first game, they would sub out the starters that they're going with tomorrow. And check out the lineups page on RotoWire. We've got the confirmed lineups in there for the starters tomorrow, and we'll have them going forward. So if they win that first game, I don't think they would sub people out. But who knows? They could. But they do have a deep roster, with pretty much players they could bring in pretty much every role, and talented players. I mean, Hope is going to start on the bench tomorrow at 80 carry, and I thought he was one of the better 80 carries in the LPL last year. So, they do have talent in other positions. If they lose that first game, then you're probably looking at potential roster swaps heading into Game 2 and Game 3 potentially, which would create a lot of dead lineups, honestly.
Yeah.
Which could be a good thing. But, like we said, the odds look like probably EDG is going to 2-0. But OMG are sneaky just because I think they're the lowest owned team. And while they're not that great, could they sneak a game? Maybe.
So you think that's more likely than the upset than the matchup of one that was actually an upset at Worlds?
Yeah, that's why it kind of sounds stupid to say that OMG are the sneaky team, right? Because Suning is the underdog in the other series against Top Esports. Suning was in the World Finals last year. You know what I mean? So it kind of sounds dumb to say that I think OMG are the team that could potentially sneak a game. But with Suning have had some weird off-season drama with Huanfeng, their starting 80 carry. There was rumors that he was going to be suspended, and I guess he did get suspended, but what I read was from December 1st to January 1st, when the only thing happening was the preseason Demacia Cup, so he really didn't miss that much, and he is confirmed to be starting tomorrow. The thing about Suning is, they were obviously phenomenal in the summer split in the LPL, and then they were phenomenal at Worlds, but they really played, at least based on a lot of these players historically, they really played over their heads quite a bit. It's going to be interesting to see if they, kind of can play at that level again this season. I think they should be a really good team again. Don't get me wrong, I don't think they're going to be bad or anything. They should definitely compete for a playoff spot. And if everything clicks the right way again, they can compete for the LPL title this spring. But, in this matchup against Top Esports, who I still think they have just one of the best top laners in the league, one of the best 80 carries in the league, one of the best junglers in the league, and Knight is arguably the best overall player in the league, up there with a few other names on other teams. But that's 4 of the best players in their roles on one team. Top Esports do have a new support this year, but he played with them in the Demacia Cup, the preseason cup in the LPL, and they won that tournament, including a 3-0 in the finals. So it seems like he's fit in pretty good, and they have 4 out of the 5 pieces back, and it looks like they should be firing all cylinders coming into this year. And it's like I said, it's kind of weird to think that Suning could definitely take a game. They could win the series. But I think Suning will be higher owned than, say, OMG will. And I just think, in my opinion, it's just one man's opinion, but I really do think Top Esports are likely to sweep that series tomorrow. So I think you're not getting as much leverage playing Suning. And if they get 2-0'd, really, your lineup's pretty dead. And where you're looking at OMG, probably, I would assume OMG in most contests are going to be single-digit owned percentage-wise. So I just think they're the better leverage play, even though they're the way worse team.
So it seems very unlikely that anybody is going to, or many people are building around Suning OMG lineups. Like, obviously, that's like the leverage off of leverage because it just doesn't seem like
dark silver bullet lineup right there. You'll see some of that because like in 3-entry max or if people are MMEing, they're going to have those, but to see both those teams win would be a pretty big shock tomorrow.
So if you think that Suning are going to be more popular than OMG, then theoretically that means people are combining EDG and Suning. We were talking about this before, like just kind of the lineups you can build. Like you can build TES EDG lineups. Like it's possible.
Very easily.
Right. There's basically one way to do it for if you want to use a mid captain. I'm not going to give away lineups, but that probably gives it away on its own. Right. Do you think we're better off trying to differentiate by doing like a captain in the 3 for a 3-4 stack, or like obviously with a 2-game slate doing like a 3-3-1 doesn't seem to make sense because you're obviously taking somebody from a losing team.
Right.
And you probably like there's nobody. I don't want to say nobody, but it seems like the players that you would want as a one-off, if you don't do like a team one-off, probably just aren't going to score as much as the guys who win. Like,
right.
Like even at ADC, like we were talking about, like if you think OMG win, like if you take Eric, then you're obviously missing out on one of the other favorites because you can't have 3 ADCs. And so do you think people will try to rely on one of the underdogs or just kind of get cute with a jungler or support captain from the favorites?
Like I said, earlier, I really think you're going to see all kinds of combinations of EDG and Top Esports lineups just because, as people get in there and make them, they're going to find out you can make a 4-3 EDG Top Esports lineup pretty easily in a variety of different ways. So I really do think you're going to see the most popular captains are probably going to be Jackie Love, Knight, and Scout. And I think the reason they're going to be the most popular is because they're the three players in the carry roles that are most solidified in their roles. So I think Viper, if this is okay to say, but Viper, I think, potentially is the lowest owned carry on the teams we expect to win in the captain spot, and he'll probably be pretty highly owned still, but less than those other three, simply because EDG have Hope on the lineup on the roster as well, and Hope could potentially come in, substitute in, especially if EDG were to drop a game. So Viper's probably the lowest owned of the heavy favorite carry options, so maybe he's a good spot to put in the captain, as a little bit of leverage, but like we've been talking, and I'm not trying to, beat a dead horse here, but I just think, multiple combinations of Top and EDG are going to be very chalky tomorrow. They're just because they're two huge favorites, and because you can fit them into your lineups. So I think, no matter what way we go, they're gonna be chalky, and I think to your point though, because you can put carries into the captain spot, having a jungler or a support could be a lower owned way to get some leverage too, even if you take them from those favorite teams. It's just that typically they're not as likely to outscore their carries.
Right.
But that's definitely probably going to be lower owned than having a Knight or a Jackie Love or a Viper or a Scout in the captain spot. So that is a good way to differentiate as well.
I don't know if I went through every combination, but I actually don't think a Jackie Love captain works.
No, I think you're right.
Like
I think I tried that, and that was the only one. But
yeah, right. He's the only one. Like the one that I was like, let's start here and see what happens. Right. And then I was like, okay, I actually can't start here.
Right.
That's when I started doing like that's when you start playing the one-off game. Like if you want to captain Jackie Love. So the the Viper thing? Like, do you think it's not specifically for tomorrow, but like, do you think they switch off like throughout the season?
I think they could. It's going to be interesting to see, just because I really do think that was one of the best 80 carries in the league last year. He was really good. He's a really talented player, and Viper is a really talented player as well. So honestly, they have two of the better ADCs in the league on one team. I think probably you're just going to see, if Viper starts tomorrow and they 2-0, which they're expected to do they roll with him going forward? If it's, if it's one of those situations like if it's not broke, don't fix it type deals.
Right.
But I think, having some squad depth isn't a bad thing. So, if they get into a part of the season where Viper's not, he hasn't acclimated to the league very well or something like that, they have a really great backup in Hope that could come in and play series and, if Viper's struggling. So I think we're really going to have to just kind of see what happens there going forward. But the good thing with China, at least, is they announced their lineups, so at least we're going to know who's starting on a given slate. Of course, that's not to say that, Viper starts, Hope can't sub in, but at least we'll know going into the slate who the starter's going to be, which is a plus, obviously.
So do you think we're more likely to see 4 EDG, 3 TES?
I think it really just depends on how comfortable people are and who they want in their captain spot and what they can afford in the rest of their lineup by doing it. But it seems like, EDG are priced lower than top in most roles. I think some of the roles, like Viper was priced as the backup, so I think...
Yeah, some weird prices to
some
start.
Of that stuff is going on, like, I think Joao I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. I got to hear it tomorrow before I can pronounce it right. But top support was priced as a backup, so I think he was priced the same as Mako, who's EDG support, even though top are more heavily favored than EDG. So I think it really is just going to depend on who people put in their captain spot and then how many pieces from which team they can fit in the rest of their lineup.
He's, I'm going to say Joao.
I think that's how you pronounce it, but I'm not 100% positive.
He is the cheapest support on FanDuel.
Yeah,
of all of them.
I was told that. That's just mispricing,
right?
Basically, but obviously it's good for if people are. I don't play FanDuel personally, but if people are playing FanDuel, obviously you're going to jam him in, and then you get a lot of salary relief. So it's it's nice when that happens.
Exactly.
DraftKings isn't so lenient with their pricing.
So with an OMG, if you wanted to build with them, do you think you just immediately go to Eric as captain?
I wouldn't put him at captain.
Oh, okay.
I would put him in the ADC spot. What I would do if you're going OMG is I would stack their bottom lane because I think it's their best two players, and then I would put their team slot because if they win, the team slot's going to equal a higher priced team most likely anyway.
Yep.
And then I would stack 4 top esports and jam in Jackie Love at captain. I'm pretty sure you can make that build work. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head here, but I think you can do that.
You very much can.
Yeah, because that's what I would do because, like we're saying, top are probably the best team on this slate. Top are the best team on this slate in my opinion. So if they 2-0 like we think they're gonna, they probably outscore OMG. OMG probably wouldn't sweep if they won. It'd probably be a 2-1. And I would just go with who I personally think are the best players on their team and use their team slot because that's, if they win, that's going to equate to a higher price team anyway, and then jam in 4 top esports, including in the captain spot.
Do you think there's a single slate this year where TES is not the top favorite?
We'll have to see what happens. If they're not playing up to standards, then maybe they drop back in prices a bit. There are some other really extremely good teams, but top esports are probably one of the 3 favorites in the league to win the title, so they're probably going to be pretty highly priced on most slates. But we will see things like when they're facing another top team like a JDG or an FPX, but they might be more similarly priced on that given slate, and then we might see another top team like EDG versus one of the worst teams in the league, where EDG is the top priced team, and then like a top esports and a JDG are more similarly priced, and then the really big underdog is the lowest priced team. So we could see something like that happen, but they're going to be expensive on most slates just because they're one of the best teams. They have some of the best players. They're always going to be pretty pricey no matter who they're playing, I think.
Yeah. I don't want to ignore Suning here after just talking about how good top are. But it seems like EDG Suning is the next kind of combination that you can consider if you're going to go for an underdog. Does Viper's possible sub make you want to captain somebody from Suning if you're going to go with those two combos?
Yeah, it would make me want to captain Huan Feng.
Even though he's been out for a month?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Suning had a weird offseason where they had like some internal drama, and that's why Huang Feng got suspended. But, he's an extremely talented player. So if we're talking just about, his play on the game, he's one of the best 80 carries in the league. He's been an up-and-coming player since he arrived last year, and, he's really talented. So I would put him in the captain spot. If they win that series, it's probably on the back of him carrying is what I would think. So I would put him in the captain spot, especially like we said, because Viper does have more sub risk than Huan Feng does. Suning do have a backup 80 carry on their team, Jin Zhao, but if they're winning that series, they're not going to take Huan Feng out. So I would go that route if I was building a Suning EDG lineup.
Okay, that makes sense. I think that's all I was going to bring up for the slate. Do you have a prediction for each one?
Yeah, if I was predicting, I'd honestly say, I guess, not factoring in, if I want my lineups to be different or anything, just straight up predictions, I would probably honestly say 2-0 top esports, 2-0 EDG, and just go straight chalk. But, obviously for lineup building in DFS, it's not fun just to have straight up duplicated lineups that you're going to tie with a bunch of people. So you kind of got to think outside the box, even if it's unlikely that, these underdogs are gonna hit tomorrow. So
yeah, I just have to imagine every cash game is just TES EDG or EDG.
Yeah, I didn't even bother with cash because there's going to be so many duplicate lineups, and if you screw up one piece, you're probably not going to cash, and it's just is it really worth it, to double up your money? Whereas, at least if you want to get a little weird in GPPs, you got a shot at winning some bigger prizes. So that's kind of the way I went, is I'd rather just play GPPs, especially on a slate like this.
All right. Love it. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you just hit the like button below and subscribe to the RotoWire account, you can get notification whenever we come up. We're going to try to do these pretty regularly now that League of Legends is back and it's fun to talk about. So, yeah, if you have any requests of what stuff that you'd like us to cover, feel free to leave a comment below. We'll certainly see that. Ethan, where are you on Twitter?
You can follow me at RW_Sexton, SEXTON, just my last name. So I don't have a huge following. I don't try to really garner one either, so it's no big deal. But, feel free if you got any just basic questions, whatever, reach out anytime. I'm happy to try to help. Yep,
and we also did a How to Play Daily Fantasy League of Legends podcast, audio podcast last year. We'll link to that below. Ethan also has an article that is also linked below. So if you're just trying to get in now, we can help you. So Ethan, thanks, and we'll talk to you for the next slate.
All right, thanks for having me, Andrew.